The search goes on for survivors of Hurricane Harvey. Dozens of people have died, while 1 million are now displaced. The CBC's Aaron Collins has been visiting some Houston neighborhoods, and he joins me now for an update. Aaron, what's it like on those streets as people return to their homes?
Well, the good news is like you mentioned, people are returning home. They're coming back to the neighborhoods all across Houston where they're being allowed to return home. Now, the bad news, of course, is when they get here, there's a big mess to clean up. We're talking about water that came 1 meter high into these houses. So pretty much the entire first floor of most of these homes needs to be completely gutted, torn down right to the studs and rebuilt from there. So, you know, the really challenging thing, of course, is even though the people are being allowed to move home, they're not really sure when life is going to get back to normal. So we're just going to stop right there, John. You're about to back into that truck. It's pretty chaotic in this part of the city still because there's just so much work to be done. Now, what I should say is that as people are able to return home to this part of the city, across Houston, it's a different story. There are parts of this city that are still absolutely underwater. So while you have people coming home here, cleaning up a mess, but still able to come home to a place with at least power, maybe not a phone, but at least power, in other parts of the city, literally the water is still up to the second story of these homes. So a radically different situation for people in different parts of this city.
It's extraordinary when you show us the piles, the mountains of debris, remnants of people's lives they've had to drag to their front yard. And I'm guessing, are people just having to do this themselves? That's a huge physical task.
Well, you know, when you've been to a few of these kinds of events, one thing you find is that you don't have to do it by yourself. So there's an army of volunteers. When we came up to this house, actually, we ran into people that were actually helping to tear this place right down to the studs. We also, earlier in the day, ran into folks that were going across this street and handing out sandwiches. Let's hear from those people.
It's hard to believe. It gives you faith in human nature again. But it's just beautiful. So we're trying to do what we can to help. I mean, we were so blessed, so we're going out to try to help other folks.
So obviously an emotional time, not just for the people returning home here, but for the people who feel like they kind of dodged a bullet and are pitching in to help out. They're coming by to, you know, really, literally empty out the contents of people's lives onto their front lawn and help them get their lives back together. So a very stressful, very strenuous situation for people here, and a big, big mess to clean up all across northwestern Houston.
Aaron, just a final thought from you too, emotional, just even for the volunteers. What are you hearing from the homeowners themselves?
Well, a couple things. I mean, it depends on who you talk to. We talk to some people who don't have home insurance, and those folks that don't have home insurance, they're in a whole heap of trouble. The people in this house that we were going into earlier, they were lucky. They did have home insurance and flood insurance, and that's going to help them get their lives back together, you know, as they move forward. So it really depends on who you talk to, what situation they're in. And as I mentioned before, just to the south of here, maybe a 15-minute drive, there's houses that are still completely underwater. So, you know, a very different situation depending on where you are here in Houston.
Aaron, thank you so much for this. CBC's Aaron Collins is in Houston.